My clients who are addicted to social media, when they use social media as their break or as their reward for finishing something, I have them set a timer. So that way their 5-minute break doesn't turn into 45 minutes of their life that just completely disappeared. So if you find yourself drifting fairly often, then make sure you have that timer. And if your phone is actually a crutch for procrastination, so when you go into your phone, you start going into all of those apps, you might not want to use the timer on your phone. You might want to get an old-fashioned egg timer or kitchen timer, the analog kind, and just set that so that way you're not tempted by your phone. But
hello and welcome to another amazing episode of TMC, where we are here to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. If this is your first time joining us, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified each time we upload a video. Today on TMC, we have Helene Segura with time management and productivity. Helping people with time management and productivity and all of those things. We can start off here. What are some things that you see happen as a result of a lack of time management or productivity?
Unfortunately, about 95% of the individuals who seek me out for help are doing so reactively versus proactively. And some of the reactive negativity that they're experiencing would be stress at work, because they are always worried about when will they get in trouble for being late, being past deadlines, for dropping the ball, for not communicating as often as they should. So they have that stress at work, which tends to carry over into their personal life. And in their personal life, because they're stressed from work, they're not always mentally present with their loved ones, even though they're physically right there. So now they have stress in the two different parts of their lives. And it begins to take a toll on them mentally, physically, emotionally, which leads to not great decision-making, which just is a part of the vicious cycle, because time management is truly all about mind management. It's making decisions about your time. And when your decision making is going downhill, then things just snowball and get worse.
So true, so true. So if someone comes to you when they first connect to you and they realize that this is an area of their lives that they need to focus on, better time management, better productivity, what is some of the first things that you would give them as like baby steps to get started with doing better in those areas?
The first thing I do is disappoint them, because there's no shopping involved. Usually they want to know what's the best calendar I should purchase, or what's the best task app I should download. And what we actually do is just start with something simple, like, what is your why? A lot of people don't pause. You know, some people might feel that is an overused question. What is your why? What is your why? But it's really important to understand, if you don't like the term, what is your why, then what is your mission? What are your priorities in life? So the first step is deciding, what are your top 3 to 5 personal priorities? What are your top 3 to 5 professional priorities? Because when you understand who and what it is you are living for, you make better decisions about your time. Then step number 2 will be create targets for those top 3 to 5 priorities. And I'll give you an example. Some of my clients, my female clients, will say, oh, one of my goals is to be a better mom. That's fantastic, but what does that mean? What does that look like? And they might say something like, well, I really should spend more time with my children. So my next question to them is, well, how much time are you spending with them right now? And they can't give me an answer.
Wow.
Then I ask, how much time do you think you should be spending with them? And they can't give an answer. So then the question becomes, if you don't understand what that target is, how do you know how far or how close you are to it? You might be beating yourself up over nothing because you haven't identified your target. So step 1 is you need to decide on your whys. And then step number 2 is identify targets for each one of those whys.
Wow. That was amazing.
That's
That's awesome, because as you were talking, when you first told us the first step, identifying your why or your priorities, I thought about that because a lot of times we talk about couples and we talk about family and marriage and everything on TMC. And a lot of times people say, I don't have time. I'm not spending enough time with the husband, not spending enough time with the kids, don't have time for myself, whatever it is. But you just given us 2 steps to start off with. First of all, prioritizing what really matters to you. What is the driving force? What is your focus? What's your priorities? And then the second thing is a target, because if we don't know how much time we're spending with them or how much time we believe we should be spending with them, then we don't have any focus. And it was so simple when you said it, but before you said it, it wasn't there.
Yeah. It's like going in the direction of going somewhere and have no clue how to get there or even what it looks like. I mean, so I really love this, just really putting things in perspective. And man, you're really helping us. I want to, because this happens in a lot of times in relationships. You have relationships where you have an individual, they're working. It could be the husband or the wife, or it could be both. They're working. And all the time is put into work, and there's no time put into each other and no time put into the family. So what are some things that we can do to be able to address those situations and know exactly what we need to do, like the next step and how we go forward with it?
The first step is realizing whether or not there is an issue with this. And I will give you a personal example. Way back when I was starting up my business, I was working a full-time job. And then at night and on the weekends, I was working to build up this business. And I was really good with time management. I knew how to streamline anybody's day. And it's through this experience, I realized it needs to be more than just streamlining your day at work. There also needs to be a balance in life. And this happened because my husband, who is a wonderful man, picked up the slack around the house since I was always working. He did all the cooking. He did more of the cleaning. He did more of the laundry. And I so appreciated that. But apparently I never took the time to tell him. In addition to always being buried in my laptop. So after many months of this, my husband, who was still being very supportive, he yells out from across the house, "Hey, PC junkie, can I make an appointment to spend some time with you?" And I thought, oh my goodness.
Wow.
That was an eye-opener. And I'm very blessed that I did not allow me to get defensive and turn it into an argument. I realized that this is a wake-up call to make sure I address this before it creates cracks or fractures in my marriage. And so step 1 is assessing the situation to determine if there is an issue or not. And the next step is, if you're not sure, ask your partner, ask your spouse. Have a nice dinner. I always find it helpful, and I tell my clients to do this. It's always helpful to speak over a full stomach because your blood sugar level is on high. So there's less of a chance to have this turn into a debate. So have a nice dinner together and ask, how is our marriage? What is working? What is not working? And do we need to spend more time addressing anything? Do we need to spend more time celebrating what we have? How do we want to spend the time that we have together? So it's having that open conversation, first with yourself and then with your spouse.
Wow, I love that. I don't want us to miss this either, because you said you were going. And you said your husband is the one that he raised the flag and said, "Hey, can I get an appointment?" And it's everybody's responsibility to pull that plug and say, "You know what? Hey, here it is," to get that conversation going and not just, secretly getting frustrated. I mean, I really love, before things got out of hand and before the cracks got bigger and bigger, before there were any cracks, he basically came to you and he said that. I really love that.
this is a flag, this is him lifting his hand. It's not for me to get defensive or offensive about it. And if we do this, what you're suggesting, sit down and talk about the things we need to address as well as the things that we need to celebrate, that sets a tone of harmony in our relationship, so that we're not like, oh, she want to talk again, oh, he want to talk again, so I know I'm in trouble. It's being mindful of the whole relationship. What you just said is being mindful of the whole relationship, the good as well as the things that we're still working on.
Exactly. It's really dangerous to sweep things under the carpet. We need to have everything front and center, because if you can't talk to your own husband or wife openly, then who can you be open with? This is your life partner, the person you're supposed to share everything with. So it's so important for both the good and the bad to be brought out in the open in a diplomatic way, without yelling at each other, and have a mature conversation about it.
Right. There's only 24 hours in the day. And so you have work, you have business, you're a wife, you're a husband, you're a father, you're a mother, you have all these different things, sister, brother, you have all these different things going on. How putting all these pieces of this whole spider web, putting everything together and getting that focus in those areas?
I love how you visually described it as a web. So for anybody listening, if you don't like the term web, then just choose your own visual pattern. It could be clouds in the sky. It could be sticky notes on a wall, but I want you to actually picture and visualize all these different parts of your life. And if it helps you, bring it out of your mind and into the physical world. So draw that web on a sheet of paper or put the sticky notes on a wall and start labeling all these different parts of your life. So the relationships you just mentioned, husband, wife, father, daughter, sister, and also the relationships that you have at work. You'll have that off to the side as well, because you need to address those. And within the 24 hours that you have in each and every day, how do you want to spend your hours on this earth? Now, it's really important. And this might sound crazy at first, but it's really important that you include sleep as your first item on your schedule, because everything that we do with our lives is based on the decisions that we make. If we are sleep deprived, we are not going to make good decisions about anything: time, money, relationships, nothing. So it's really important you get your sleep scheduled first, at least 7 hours. And 7 from 24 is 17. I'm not really great at math, but I'm pretty sure that's the correct number that's left. So now we have 17 waking hours in the day. How do you want to use that time? Do you want to spend it on social media? Do you want to spend 3 hours on there throughout the day? Is that nourishment for you? Or would you rather spend that 3 hours of quality time with different people in your life? If you're working 8 out of those 17 hours, and then you have another hour of commute, you can see how your hours for personal time begin to shrink. And that's why it is that much more important to decide what will you do with your time outside of work.
Wow.
Make those minutes count.
Wow. You just made that picture very clear. I mean, just beginning with the 24, subtracting the 7 for sleep, subtracting the 8 for work, subtracting the hour for commute. I mean, you have to actually think about it that way. And then when you talked about us spending time doing the other things like social media or binge watching or whatever else we may be doing, that is taken away from how we want to spend our time on this earth, which is what you just said. That's something that I'm definitely going to have to still in my mind to remember. Everything we do is determining how I spend my time on this earth.
Yes. So every decision you make is shaping your future self. And you need to decide, what do you want your future self to be? What do you want your future self to feel like? Your future self could be 30 minutes from now. It could be the end of the day. It could be this weekend. It could be what is on your tombstone. But you're always thinking about, how do I want to feel about things in the future? And that's part of what should help you make a decision about how you move forward. When we are on our deathbeds, and we come to the realization that this is the end, it could be we have peace about that, or we have fear, or we have regret. And if you're thinking about your future self, if you want to feel that peace, not just at the end of your life, but every single day, that's when you start thinking about, what decision can I make now so that I don't have regrets? So my goal isn't just to use my time wisely to get more done during the day. At the end of the day, I would like to be able to say, did I live a life of no regrets in the way I spoke to people, in what I decided to do with my time? Because I don't want to be that person on my deathbed with all of their regrets. I don't want to turn 60 or 70 or 80 and have all of these regrets of what I didn't do. Remove those regrets. Think about what you do want to do and go do them.
Wow.
I love it.
So simple yet so profound. Because I think as you were talking, I'm thinking about myself, and it's like, do I really think about these things on a regular? Because even when I'm scheduling and planning and putting things on the calendar, and we have this to do and that to do, and business and church and the kids and everything we have in life, we're putting all of that on the calendar, and we're focusing on getting it done, but spending that time thinking about how I'm spending my time on earth. And then you just packed it on with living your life so that there are no regrets. So thinking about the things you want to do and getting up and going and doing it, just doing it, living a different life than, oh, I'll do that later. Because I think oftentimes for myself, I can say, oh, I'll do that someday, or I'll get to do that one day, or, we'll get to do this later on in life when we retire or something like that, but not thinking about how you're spending your time right now and not wanting those regrets. When you were talking, the only thing I thought about was thinking backwards. So thinking backwards, like on my deathbed, thinking backwards, if I would regret this, then those are the things that I should be doing.
Yeah. And just to clarify for everybody listening, I'm not suggesting you become this robot who only thinks about the future.
Come on, make that clear.
There needs to be a balance between past, present, and future. So you're thinking about the past, at least somewhat, to make sure you're not repeating mistakes from the past, but you are repeating the good things that you've done, and you're building on your strengths. You're living in the present because you want to absorb every single moment, enjoy it all. Because when you're so busy, going, you forget to be in the moment because you're always thinking about, well, what's the next thing that's on my list? Instead, rejoice in this moment. But at the same time, when the moment is right, you want to think about, well, what are my next steps? What do I want to accomplish tomorrow or this weekend? Now, my husband and I use Sundays as our catch-up day, in that we're not catching up with tasks that we didn't do. We are catching up with each other. If we didn't schedule enough time with each other during that week, we are catching up on relaxation. If we felt like we didn't put up our feet long enough for each evening or on Saturday. So Sundays are basically one long me day and us day.
That's awesome.
I love it.
So we can rejoice, reflect, sit on the back porch for a few hours if that's what we want to do, and not feel guilty about it, because there is nothing wrong with enjoying yourself.
So what do you do about like drifting? I mean, sometimes we can start something and then we go into a drift. Do you have something set up or something on your calendar that brings you back, or you've been doing it for so long that you no longer drift?
Oh, I definitely drift. I think I have squirrel syndrome just as much as anybody else. You see a shiny object or the random thoughts that we're all plagued with, things pop into our heads, especially when we're most relaxed. That's when those thoughts tend to come in. So there are two things that I recommend my clients use. One is to have a thought capture tool right next to them at all times, whether that's a notes page open in your device or some sticky notes and a sheet of paper. when those random thoughts pop into your head, you can capture them and get back to what you were working on. So having that random thoughts capture tool is helpful. And so is using a timer, especially when we are working on something we don't truly enjoy. Because when it's that kind of task or project, we tend to wander a whole lot sooner, a whole lot earlier than we intended. So you might set a timer for 15 minutes and then just reset it when the 15 minutes are up. But if your mind has wandered in less than the 15 minutes, then that timer is going to bring you back in. Or my clients who are addicted to social media, when they use social media as their break or as their reward for finishing something, I have them set a timer. So that way their 5-minute break doesn't turn into 45 minutes of their life that just completely disappeared. So if you find yourself drifting fairly often, then make sure you have that timer. And if your phone is actually a crutch for procrastination, so when you go into your phone, you start going into all of those apps, you might not want to use the timer on your phone. You might want to get an old-fashioned egg timer or kitchen timer, the analog kind, and just set that so that way you're not tempted by your phone. But having that timer and having that random thoughts capture tool next to you will help with the drifting.
That's more nuggets.
And if you are super digital and you revolve around your phone, you don't want to have paper next to you, then something you can consider doing is moving your temptation apps to a back screen and having only your primary non-distracting apps on your home screen. So you might have only the timer and the calendar on your home screen, and everything else is on the rear screens. And the reason for that is because in the few seconds it takes you to swipe to get to those other screens, that gives the logical part of your brain a chance to say, wait a minute, what are you doing? Are you about to procrastinate? So that'll help you as well if you truly need to stay digital and can't step away from your phone for 10 minutes.
You are helping Cedric and Shante tonight.
Yay!
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Wow.
So, Helene, tell us, as we talk about and just soak in all of this information, tell us a little bit about your company and what you do.
Yes.
Sure. My company is Living Order SA. SA is short for San Antonio. And as I mentioned earlier about time management, I do that through different modes. So it's coaching or consulting individuals. It can be keynotes, seminars, workshops with entire companies or just a department or an association. And I also have webinars for those folks who want to be on demand or stay in their pajamas while they learn. And then of course my books, but the whole key is helping folks find a way to receive this information because we're all different. You know, some people prefer videos, some people prefer the podcast. So what way is best for you to receive the information? And whatever it is, I have that different channel to make sure people get the help they need.
How long do you typically meet with your clients? How do that normally?
With some clients, I meet with them for only the minimum 2 sessions because they're good to go. They picked up the information that they need. They just needed some slight tweaking. But for folks where we need to dive in a little more, it could be 4 sessions, 1 session a month. It could be 4 sessions, 1 session each week. So everybody is different, and we determine that after the first session to see how much time they need in between, because you don't want to throw a whole bunch of new things all at once to somebody. You know, during our conversation today, we're talking about everything under the sun. Right. But if this was a coaching session, that would be a lot more difficult to say, oh my gosh, I need to do all these 10 things right now. We need to build slowly to make sure there's success and then build upon that success. So the timing is different for everybody.
You said something, and I want you to touch on that because you have people. I mean, someone just listened to the podcast right now. Someone may have read a book, and I believe coaching and working with someone is so important because it's better than, and it's necessary because you have the accountability And it's better than trying to do it yourself. I even talk, Tiger Woods, LeBron James, and all these great athletes, they have coaches as well. I want you to touch on the aspect of why. Why is coaching necessary?
I think you hit the nail on the head with accountability. Not everybody likes that word, but accountability means that we have somebody else that we are promising that we are going to do something in addition to our own selves. We should want to do it for our own selves, but sometimes we need a little more than that because we do have so much going on. So we get that accountability from a coach. We also get that expertise from a coach. And that's why it's really important you look for a coach that teaches what you need. Because if somebody promises to coach everything under the sun, you really have to wonder, how did you get good at everything under the sun? So you go to that expert who you need. I have a client who I started working with a couple months ago, and he said, you know what? Tom Brady has a sports psychologist, and he has an accountant, and he has a masseuse, and he has a nutritionist. So I decided that if he can be successful with all these different people in his life, I need it too. I just can't pay as much as Tom Brady does. And so what he did was, for once a quarter, he worked with a different specialist.
Wow.
To pick up information that he needed because that fit his budget, and he still got the help that he needed. And he said, I could spend hours scouring the internet trying to find all this information. So why not save that time? See, he's on to time management already. Why not save that time and go directly to the expert and lessen my learning curve and shorten the time that it takes?
Wow, that is good.
That's amazing. Good. That's amazing. Awesome.
How many times have you had a client come to you and you teach them different time management skills or productivity skills or ways to pinpoint inefficiencies in their own lives and managing their time and productivity? And then they talk to you about how it helps them in other areas of their lives.
That happens quite often. And it's usually not with the person who only has 2 sessions, because I've only seen them for the 2 sessions. It's more for the long term. In the decisions that they make about time and getting better about those decisions, they can apply those same skills to making decisions about commitments that they give to other people and basing those on priority. Has to do with their finances. Making better decisions about what's a priority to spend their money on versus saving, and how are we going to divvy up our money, just like how are we going to divvy up our time. So it begins to spread into all areas of their life. And that's part of the reason why when you start working on your time management, you begin to feel peace, because it's not just, oh, I know how to tell time on my watch and I can set a timer. It goes far beyond that. It goes to making decisions about everything in your life, because you have created your mission, you get it, and you want everything in your life to revolve around that and reflect that.
Everything that you shared on today is giving for the listener that applies what they hear, and even for those that reach out to work with you and to learn these time management skills and this productivity, and even to put into practice the things that you've shared with us on tonight, that just like you said, they will begin to see it. It's like a ripple effect. That's why I asked the question, because I know anytime you get better in any area of your life, it affects every area of your life, because then you start to pay attention. Just listening to you tonight, I'm thinking about myself and areas where I'm not paying attention, or where I'm not even managing my time properly to do the things that I want to do, or the things that spending time with people, whatever it is, just making sure that I'm paying attention to those things. And then I wrote down the steps that you gave us, definitely so that I could use them for myself to be better. And we definitely believe that anytime you show up as an individual better, that it makes your relationships better, it makes your marriage better, it makes your family better, because it can't help but to get better, because you're a part of that unit and you're getting better. And then as others see it, and you share it with them. I'm so glad Cedric asked the question about coaching, because some people do think, they don't understand it, or some people think, oh, I'm good. I watch a couple of podcasts, maybe do a little YouTube and I'm good. I'm just going to do these practices. But that accountability for someone to be checking in with you and someone to say, hey, how are you doing in this area? How are you doing in that area? And you gave us, in the beginning of the podcast, you talked about ways to quantify what we're working on and how we're focusing it. And that's what a coach does for you, because otherwise we would just be saying things like, I'm not spending enough time with my kids. I'm not spending enough time with my husband. I'm not spending enough time focused on my business. I'm tired. I'm not getting things done. I'm not progressing in my career. You would just continue to live that way. But when you have that accountability, someone checking in saying, hey, we said we were working on this. How are you doing with that? I think that's definitely beneficial.
Realizing that it's really tough to try to make it through this life on your own. We all need something extra. And if we would open our minds and hearts to the help that is out there, oh my goodness, life will get easier when we have this help and we have this guidance.
I can only imagine these success stories that you constantly hear over and over again, whether it's single, with couples or with their children.
One of my favorite success stories, not that there haven't been really great ones over the last 16 years, but this is the first one that really had a huge impact on me. It was a woman who had gone through a very nasty divorce. Publicly, her persona was one of confidence, and she was absolutely magnetic when she walked into a room. But behind closed doors, she had so much pain inside, and she was a nervous breakdown waiting to happen. So to watch her metamorphosis, and no change is instant when you have to go through major changes, but to realize that she woke up each day and she made a conscious decision that she was going to make today even better than yesterday was, and putting in the work that she needed to with one new skill each week. And over the next couple of months, she completely turned her life around. She would close a door when she walked into a room by herself and no longer feel the need to cry. I mean, can you imagine every time you walked into a room on your own, having to close the door and just wanting to shed tears and bawl your eyes out? So for her, it was a major step forward to not have to do that anymore, to not always feel like she had to cry because life was out of control. So that was one of my first, most heartwarming turnarounds that I had seen in my career. So that is one that still stays near and dear to my heart, because she started with so much that she needed to work on, and she was willing to, and she did make her life so much better.
Awesome. This is awesome. This is awesome. Awesome conversating with you. I hate for it to come to the end. But what I want to do, if someone wants to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
I will give you a webpage to visit. That webpage is timemanagementrevolution.com. Not only can you get in touch with me there, but you'll see a little rectangle on the page that says get your complimentary productivity Kickstarter kit. So when you sign up for it, the page that opens up has a bunch of tools that you can start using immediately, totally free, including the time tracker and time planner that I use with my clients to help you start to get focused even before you begin working with me. So going to that page, timemanagementrevolution.com, that's the best way to get in touch with me and also pick up some free resources.
On behalf of the TMC family, we would like to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If this is your first time joining us, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified each time we upload a video. And if you're listening on iTunes, rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps us get the word out. And we want to invite you to head on over to our leadership podcast, Lead to Greatness, where my husband is interviewing entrepreneurs and great leaders every week.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on TMC. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.